Well, hey guys, it's been several years since I have been involved with my dad's place here. I'm in the dairy barn. This addition here that I'm standing in now was built in 1961. Before 1961, they only had a handful of dairy cows that they would milk, and they were still milked by hand all the way up until 61, as far as I understand. In 61, my granddad, he was back from the Navy for about, I guess it was his second year back. He had decided to use his money that he had earned. Well, he was on a battleship during the Korean War to build this barn and this addition and a milk house and kind of modernize the farm and get it to the point where they could start farming more mechanized, so to speak. 61, I think, was a pretty good year for the farm here. They had, like I say, the addition with the milk house and the milk pump. And then they had purchased the Oliver tractor around that time. And it just seemed like a pretty good year. There were a lot of old pictures from 61 and a lot of information. Like I said, in 68 is when my granddad had passed away from cancer. He was only 38 years old. And this barn had, they never had an auction. My great-grandmother tried to keep up with the cows and keep milking them. And as they were having issues, they would slowly sell them off. They were still doing the field work. But it just got to the point where finally all the animals left. In the 70s, I think my dad had some steers in here. So that takes us to the 90s. In the 90s, there was a cement floor poured in here over the gutters and everything. You can see it's, I think this is like 35 feet by 35 feet, this addition. And you'll still notice the leftover, that's where one of the stalls were. And the was the feed gutter and the feed alley here. So that was done in the 90s, and fast forward to about the year 2000 is when I started getting involved. The barn windows, the original aluminum ones, were tore out of here. These here I made out of some pressure treated lumber and plexiglass to try to get it more sealed up. It is insulated up in the ceiling, and there is blown in insulation up there. And this roof is actually asbestos. There are 4x8 sheets of asbestos sheeting. So back in the 60s, you couldn't get anything better than asbestos because the fireproofing and how long it lasts. Now it's been painted several times with many, many layers of paint. So as far as a health risk, it's pretty well zero at this point. Like I say, in some spots with all the whitewash and then the paint, exterior paint and all different masonry paint, there's probably 5 or 6 coats of paint on it. So we're all right there. You'll notice I put this in here. This was actually my shop when I was farming here. It wasn't the best of a shop, the best building for a shop, because the ceiling is only about 8 feet high. I couldn't get a whole lot in here. My Farmall Super C was in here. I had an 8N Ford. I had a regular C. I had a Massey 50, and I had an International 544 that all fit in here. And basically, I kept my tractors in here. I kind of had it to the point where it was almost a machine shop. Now, like I say, it's been several years since I left here. So, like I say, it's a little cluttered up. But in this corner, I had a lathe. I had an Atlas metal lathe that I did some turning on. Then I had a bench there with a drill press. I had a mini milling machine that I had done some milling work. I had a bigger milling machine sitting here. I would do some machining for different neighbors. I had cut keyways and stuff like that. Of course, all the toolboxes and supplies. This side, I never got the windows in. They're just screens with plastic. You'll notice the plastic has deteriorated. The electric service wasn't bad in here. I had all these fluorescent lights to light everything up. Basically, being that the ceiling was so low and it was insulated, it wasn't bad to heat. Basically, I just had one of those old barrel heaters. You've seen them, those 55-gallon drums. I had two of them stacked on top of each other and burned wood in here. And it took the chill off and then some. Some winters when it was bitter cold, I also had a torpedo heater running. And you could have this 70 degrees in the matter of no time. It's not like where I am now. Nothing's insulated, everything's open, everything's cold, no place to work. So I like to show you this area over here. You'll notice how the floor is cut away and there's some pipes in there. That was actually a bathroom. This addition featured a bathroom with a toilet and a sink and running water, and a septic tank was out back. My grandmother told me that this bathroom in this barn was the first bathroom that they had with a flushable toilet on the farm. In '61, they were still using the outhouse, which was amazing to me. But like I say, some farms had more luck than others. Like I said, my granddad and great-granddad both died in their 30s, so it was tough times here. So in '61, to have a bathroom in here, it was pretty amazing. So that's been since removed. There was a block wall here that would separate the bathroom from the cows. This barn will only hold 27 head of cattle, and in one sense it was a nice addition. In the other sense, my granddad kind of made a mistake, I think. Most barn additions in bank barns to milk cows, the bank barn runs this way. He came out this way and ran his stalls directly back. And if I had better lighting back there, I would show you. I'll do another tour someday. But the stalls ran this way. So you had all this wasted space on this side and this side where you couldn't have cows milking. He had heifers on a line there tied just like the dairy cows were. We never had a heifer barn. There's calf pens and calf stalls in the back there. Then they had the sawdust bin in the back wall where they could dump it in from the top to fill with sawdust for bedding. On this side, they had the maternity pen. They had like a box stall. And then in the front, they had just an open area where they would have some of the other heifers. No pens for dry cows. Like I said, no buildings for heifers. Everything was in the barn here. So if a cow was dried off, they'd still be in the stall and still being fed like a like a dairy cow. So it definitely was an interesting time to be milking cows. And like I say, it's as nice as the addition is. Like I say, he kind of made a mistake. He should have went out and made the bank barn longer, but I don't know what the bank barn looked like beforehand, and he might have had some issues that prevented that. This barn here is massively built. With the rocks that we have in this area, these walls are 3 foot thick or more. And the lumber, being that they had their own sawmill here on the property, the lumber that they used all came from the farm, and the support poles, the cross members that hold this barn up are enormous. It's really amazing to see when you go to other barns and you see the size, the dimensions of the lumber. They really overbuilt this bank barn. Bank barn was built in 1873. I had to think about it for a minute. 1873 must have been a good year for the farm, because that's also the year they built the farmhouse. So they built the farmhouse and a bank barn all in one year. And the farmhouse, the construction of that, we had torn off the plaster and lath to insulate it and do some modernization. They didn't frame it in pine. They framed it in red oak. And trying to drill holes for wires and receptacles to upgrade the electric was an absolute nightmare. All the framing members in that house are red oak, and they really overbuilt things here. So yeah, I'm just trying to give you a tour here. I'm trying to do the best I can. Like I say, I don't have very good lighting. You can see back there, maybe you can't, there's still remnants of the stalls and the gutters. My granddad never got a gutter cleaner installed in here. All the manure had to be shoveled and forked out of the gutters by hand onto the manure spreader. So it was very labor intensive. I'll take you outside here if I can get out. Like I say, it's been many years since I was working over here. Just if I get this door open, bear with me here. It's kind of gotten overgrown. I used to mow this and keep it nice. So out here, this here is where the old trench silo was. There was a dirt mound here, and it was right against the barn wall. So he used to chop a lot of ryegrass and sorghum, and they would put it in here and pack it down with the Oliver. And like I say, there was a trench here. This addition I had started. This was where I was going to put my 750 Massey combine. I had made supports under there. There's like a cardboard sleeve that I poured concrete in, and then I made a post bracket out of it. It was all made, all welded and made here. The posts were sawed at my local sawmill. It's starting to get deteriorated. It was just something I never finished. When I left, I just left. So it's still sitting here. I needed a building for the combine to get it out of the weather. So I think I was at the point where I needed to get some trusses and tin, and it kind of went by the wayside. There's still stone here. There's probably 10 ton of stone here that I never got up. So it's kind of a shame that it's not finished and it's deteriorating, but it's kind of a shame that everything's getting grown up, but it's kind of the way it goes. So getting back to my story, some of you guys that have been following me since the beginning, I was a mechanic for 10 years, working for a farm equipment dealership, and was laid off in the 1 year when the economy was pretty bad. Never was called back to work. Came here, basically had to start from scratch, and basically had a mechanic shop in here. I used to do some work for people. I did a lot of buying and selling, a lot of restoration work. You name it. I had a pretty nice setup in here. Back there where the cows were, I had like a parts department almost. I had shelves with all kinds of parts. I'd dismantle things that were pretty well junk but still had good parts on them, and I would sell the parts. So yeah, that's the tour here. I'll take you into the milk house. It's kind of a disaster at the moment, but like I say, you've seen my place and how clean everything is, so you can imagine it was a little bit. The calf pens were here. I know it's dark. I know one of the regulations was for a milk house you had to have 2 doors separating the stable from the milk. So they did that. They had 2 doors here, and they had their electric in here in this little area. Here in the floor, probably won't be able to see it, but there's a penny that is stuck into the concrete here. It is from 1961, which I thought was pretty neat that they went to the trouble to do that. Coming into the milk house here, like I say, it's a disaster right now. They had an International Harvester milk can cooler in that corner. The milkers were, as a matter of fact, they're still here. I'll see if I can't zoom in. Those are the original Surge belly milkers. And of course they had a sink here. And this was like the medicine cabinet that they had over the top of the sink for supplies and stuff. So yeah, just to kind of give you an idea of dairy farming in the 60s. And this farm's had a lot of changes and a lot of, I guess you could say a lot of tragedies. And it's still here, it's still in the family. And like I said, being rented out to other farmers. So there's an addition out through there. I put that on. I put an addition on to extend the milk house out a little bit. There's just kind of a lean-to. Made a nice area for parking implements. I had the grain head from the Massey under that roof, and a lot of the 3-point stuff, just to give me some extra storage. There was probably 18, 19 buildings on this property when they were farming it, and today there's about 6. And a lot of those fell down due to a lack of maintenance, lack of roofs. I have torn down many myself. I tore down a log cabin, tore down a machinery shed that was totally unusable. My dad has torn down buildings. So yeah, it's really changed since the 50s, but So that's where I'm going to end the video, guys. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more. As I get time this winter, I'll take you on a lot more barn tours. I have access to a lot of different barns and stuff. So thanks for watching.